Well, you did it. You found your way back to the Blazor Puzzle again. This is episode 73. I'm Carl Franklin from AppvNext, and that's my friend Jeff Fritz from Microsoft. Hey, Jeff.
How do, Carl? How's things?
Things are good over here in Connecticut, man. It's slowly deciding to warm up, but it's going to be raining for the next week or so. I don't know what's going on. You know, it's just...
You have it just starting to warm up. I love my college sports. I root for my university that I went to, Penn State, and we're not warming up. We're about to go a little frozen because the ice hockey championships are this coming weekend. They call that the Frozen Four, and we're all excited to see a little bit of college ice hockey this weekend.
Wow, that's so cool. I wish I could just jump on a train and come down and hang out with you.
It'd be fun.
But work. Hello, boys.
Fine.
All right. Let's get to the puzzle, referring to refs. Roll the music.
All right.
So what we got here, Jeff?
So here's the deal. I got a question the other day about using the @ref directive inside of your components, right? You use ref so that you can get a concrete .NET reference to a component as a class that you can then work with. But a bunch of funny things can happen as you interact with that component as a class. So I wrote a little bit of an introduction here in the project. This is a Blazor server interactive project, and I've taken the counter page and included it here on the home page as a component.
Okay.
Now, I added a couple extra things here, a couple extra buttons so that we could interact with it and tinker and see how some of the things work. And I think I want to introduce a little bit of the Blazor Puzzle lightning round.
Lightning round?
Can that be a thing? Can we do, because there's a couple facets to this I think I wanted to touch on, and I think we can hammer through this quickly because they're all related.
Okay, so like 3 fast puzzles?
You got it.
Okay, I like it.
All right, here we go. So the first one we have here, of course, we know that the click button here from the counter, it just increments that counter right there on the screen, right there at the bottom. Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. But you want to be able to increment the counter by something other than just one. We can expose a property, and then I can key in a value here, and it doesn't immediately update, right? I would do that by just by data binding directly to a property and include that, and it could increment directly. No, I want to actually make you set that as the increment value. So I added this save increment button that when I click that, calls a method and defines here's the increment value, and then it will increment by 1,000.
Okay.
So let's take a look at that code real quick before we get to our first puzzle, because I wanted to kind of set the table here for what's going on.
Set the table. See what I did there?
See what I did?
Hey, that's Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, why not? We know Blazor works in other editors and things, so I thought we'd try a little VS Code this time.
Good.
So here I have that save increment feature right there at onClick, save increment. And you see I have the ref wired up to a variable called myCounter, and it's down here on line 42. There's the counter component. I just called it myCounter.
Okay.
And save increment, you see here, all it's doing is reaching into the counter component and saying the increment value. It's setting a property.
Yeah.
Equals that increment. Now, if I do jump over to the counter, it does have that increment value sitting here, and I'm just setting that because it's a public property. I'm setting that property. It's also a parameter.
Yeah, I was going to say that because it's a parameter, it might behave a little differently than just a regular property.
Right. If I had bound to the parameter, it would immediately update, and no matter what was keyed into the box, into the text box, it would automatically bind and wire up and affect that increment. So this might be important for you to do with a method to set that property. Maybe you have something you want to confirm before somebody actually moves forward in your process, right?
Right.
Things like you're building a shopping cart. You want to confirm, is this everything that you want to order? Is this the right shipping method? Is this the correct payment? So on and so forth. You want to put that confirmation in, being able to run a method to set this property first.
Do you really want to buy products from Joe's DiscountSharkCages.com?
That might not be a good idea.
Just saying. It's probably
yeah. Discount Shark Cages sounds like a sponsor of Shark Week. All right. So I can set the increment there. Now, the next piece that I want to look at, though, is back over here. I added a reset counter button that sets the value of the counter to 0. And if I click that, it sets it, but the counter doesn't actually go to 0. And I know it set it because when I click, it starts counting from 0 and adding 1,000.
Does it need to just, refresh with a status change or something like that?
How do we update? That's our first question for the puzzle.
Okay.
And we'll give you out there.
So, okay. This is where we're going to pause.
This is where we're going to pause for a second.
How are you doing it now? Can you show us?
So right now, we'll take a quick look back over here on the home page. So when I click reset counter, there's a reset counter method that's called, and it's reaching in and just saying my counter current count equals 0.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward. And when we look at the counter, the current count is there as a property, and it's 0.
Okay.
By default, right? So to a little bit of what we were saying earlier, it doesn't behave the same way if you bind to the parameter versus setting the property.
Right.
So how do we fix this?
How do we fix it? All right. This is puzzle number 1 in our lightning round episode 73 of Blazor Puzzle. We'll be right back with the answer.
There you go. All right, you're back. Here's the deal. And we were tiptoeing right up to it. And this is the easy one. This is the interesting, easy one. So I want to reset that. Well, we know we can call a method inside of our component here. So let's just add a method right there called reset counter.
Okay.
We'll set the current count and we'll call StateHasChanged.
And we can optionally provide a new value if you want. But it's 0 by default.
Yep. So I'll just jump back over to my homepage, and where I was calling my method here reset counter, I'll just swap out resetting the current count and say reset counter to 0.
Yep.
I have hot reload running here, so I can just jump right back in to the example, and I'll click reset counter, and it resets it to 0.
Yeah. So this is a thing that we've showed with parameters before. And it's because it's a parameter. When you try to change it on the fly, it doesn't always update. And is it because I couldn't remember what the actual reason was, but I've had to unparameterize properties. Parameters are for when you define the defaults going in.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
and it's usually when you have an object that you want it to work with, not usually a value, right?
Well, the parameter, and it can be a value. The parameter allows you to declaratively assign a value that you want to bind to, assign a variable, bind this to. And that variable, to your point, can be a complex type, or it can be a value type, like a number that we have here.
Yep.
So when you bind as a parameter, it will update automatically for you. When you want to set it as a property, that's when you need to actually go through and trigger StateHasChanged. And we did do something similar to this in a previous episode.
Yes. Yep.
But we're going to get into a couple more that are just a little bit different that show you
all right. I'm
similar
ready.
interactions here.
What's the next one?
The next one, we have a little bit of warning text that we may want to include in our counter. And in sample 2, it's bullet 3 here. We have this text, and we have a show text button here that runs a method that should show the text and then hide it after 2 seconds, right?
Okay.
Maybe you have some sort of a warning message that you want to show and make sure that folks see it, and then have it fade away or whatever. And when I click that, it doesn't show up on screen.
Okay.
Let's take a look
at that code. Yeah.
At that code. So here in the home page, there's my show text button, and it calls a method show text. And down here, it's delegating to a show text method inside the counter component.
Yeah.
So over here in the counter component, here's my show text method, and it has a text is visible property that it sets, delays for 2 seconds, and then resets text is visible to false.
Okay.
Text is visible is used up here, and right now I just have a little paragraph that says, this is my counter.
Now, this is weird. I wouldn't expect that you'd have to do a StateHasChanged here, because you're ultimately calling the method from a UI event.
Right.
And as we all know, when you do a button click or something like that and you change something, you don't have to call StateHasChanged. It's only when you're coming from, I don't know, JavaScript or something outside of the framework that modifies the UI that you have to do that.
So let's do StateHasChanged here.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
And probably also after you set it to false, right?
We'll give that a try in just a second. I'll refresh there and click
Okay.
show text. This is my counter.
Okay.
But it doesn't go away.
Ah.
So let's add StateHasChanged in here.
Yeah.
Save that. Go back over. Refresh. Show text. This is my counter. And it still doesn't go away.
Wow. Definitely longer than 2 seconds.
So,
this is a good
out
one,
there.
Jeff.
Here's your second puzzle in the lightning round. Take a pause, think about it, and we'll be right back.
I'm stumped, man. I don't know.
Okay. So, once again, StateHasChanged is the right thing to do. And you were right on it, Carl, when you were saying about how when other things trigger updates on the page, we want to call StateHasChanged. But this comes back to something that we learned way back in WinForms and WPF.
Timers and threads?
You got to be on the right thread.
Yeah.
So we have the InvokeAsync method that we have to call around our StateHasChanged when that timer runs up.
Because it's not on the UI thread.
That's right. Save that. Back over to our sample. Show text. And it goes away.
But the interesting thing is that it didn't throw an error. You know,
That's
sometimes you'll get an error that says, "Oh, we can't do this on
this thread." Yeah. So once again, just a little bit there that we need to follow in to make sure that we're on the right thread. We're updating the user interface and notifying appropriately. Now let's take that. We've been doing this with @ref and calling those methods directly. How do we do this same thing, though, declaratively? Right? We've been thinking about reaching into the component and click that button and fire that method. How would we do this if we wanted to do it declaratively? Right? So we've seen that method. I'll go back to the code. Over here, show text that knows how to set the visible true, false, and hide appropriately.
Right.
And it's being called directly. We're directly executing this method here based on that component that we've got a reference to. Well, what if we wanted to declaratively do this so that we didn't have to expose a method?
Would you
go and do? Well,
okay.
There's your final puzzle.
Should I not
part of
give
the lightning
my answer
round,
yet?
And we'll discuss in just a moment.
I think I know it, and it involves JavaScript and Vue.
Ooh.
No, I'm kidding.
Wait, I'm usually the guy who's suggesting.
I know. I'm just trying to play along, Jeff. All right, roll the music. Right. We'll be right back.
Yeah. JavaScript and Vue.
I'll come up with something more original next time. All right. So what I think I would do, and I've never seen this before, so this is just me. playing the puzzle. What I think I would do is I would bind a Boolean.
I like where you're going.
Yep. I would have a Boolean property or parameter.
Yep.
And when that parameter is true inside, that's when I show my text.
So you might do something like this.
Yeah.
And bind this to some sort of
sort of variable here.
Variable. I have a variable here called home text visible.
Okay.
And let's see. I'm going to go down here, and then I would do something maybe on show text and say home text visible equals true. I will take that and go over here, and I already have a parameter set called text visible. And here's the back half of the magic of this. I'm setting an internal property that text is visible to that visibility. Because we want to do this show and then quickly hide after 2 seconds, I'll reach in and call that same show text method where we'll set it to true, make it visible, and then after 2 seconds, hide it.
Yeah,
so
okay.
We'll get everything saved there, go back over to the user interface. I'll click the button here, and it shows, and then goes away. Terrific.
Yeah.
Now, we did have a little bit of an issue here, and I think we might leave that as a little bit of homework for our friends if they want to take a look and drop us some comments below. So there's a small issue that Carl and I just saw as we were recording this, where when you click the show text button a second time, it doesn't actually work. Why? You could take a look at that and drop us a comment in the text below. Let us know what you think. All the source code is available. Check out the link to our GitHub.
Yeah.
Just below in the description. Yep.
And of course, if you have puzzles that you want to share with us, you should do so by sending them to us by email at blazorpuzzle@appvnext.com. And, if we use your puzzle and show it on the show, we'll give you a Blazor Puzzle mug.
Ooh. Look at that.
Yeah.
There's a guy with a purple beard on there.
Right. What's that?
There's a guy with a purple beard on that thing.
Yeah, well, you used to have a purple beard, and then you're no fun anymore, Jeff.
Oh, I got to work on that.
What's with the colors? All right. We'll work on it. Hey, we hope you like this new format, and, we're not going to do this every week, but, this was a good idea, I think, and made for a better show. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Take care, friends.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out blazortrain.com and the .NETshow.com for more great content.